Alrighty, welcome back to the big show. I'm Jamel Hartman. It's the Daily Hour brought to you by the BAC Group of Companies, Medical House Lindos, and People's Pharmacy. Do not forget to subscribe on our website. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. All right. Without further ado, let's bring in our very special guest for the day. She's like a colleague at this point. We've got Lisa Reed from the Human Rights Commission. Welcome. How are you?
I'm great. It's so good to be here. Thank you for having me again, Jamel.
Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for coming. Before we jump into today's conversation, I must ask you, what's your favorite app? It's app day. What's your favorite app to use?
Libby. Oh my goodness. The fact that all of these amazing books are available at the Bermuda National Library via the Libby app, I've read 7 books since September. And I'm not a really, really big book reader.
Mhm.
My favorite app, absolutely.
Okay, Libby getting some love this morning. Okay. Yeah, I always fascinated. I'm fascinated that when I ask people their favorite app, I'm always encouraged when they don't say like a social media one, because I'm like, it's so much more to the internet than social media. But anyway, thanks again for doing this so early in the morning. For those, just before we jump into today's conversation, just remind people, tell them a bit about your background and what it is that you do with the Human Rights Commission.
Sure. I am the executive officer of the Human Rights Commission. My role is to oversee the strategic management and mandate of the organization. Just reminding our viewing audience, the Human Rights Commission is Bermuda's national human rights institution, which means that at the national level, it has a legal mandate to protect and promote human rights. And the Commission is one of the independent non-ministry offices. And so our role is both a public watchdog for human rights compliance, and as well, we are a resource, a public resource, a free public resource to promote human rights principles. We work with stakeholders across the island, including government, community organizations, schools, businesses, and of course, individuals.
All righty. Thank you for that summary. And I think, in celebrating Human Rights Day yesterday, one of the things I noticed is that it's under the UN. It started in the 40s, and then Bermuda, I think, Maya told me 1981. It was, a long time coming, but obviously there's still so many things that are going on. How did Bermuda, observe Human Rights Day?
So yesterday we participated, well, first of all, we held a social media campaign. We also participated in a press conference with Glenn Fubler and other advocates and individuals who are concerned about human rights broadly, locally and internationally. And so the media covered that. Didn't see anything on the news, on the local news last night, but I suspect it'll probably be covered by Friday.
Okay.
And one of the things that we did is, I gave remarks and I, again, reinforced the importance of recognizing the rights that we have afforded and that we must be vigilant because rights can be repealed at the stroke of a pen. And we've seen this.
In the United States recently. Yeah, we've seen that happen in the United States. And I think we shouldn't take advantage.
Seen it in Bermuda.
Yeah.
We've also seen it in Bermuda. Yeah.
So just remind an audience, if you have any questions or comments, please send them through. We'll get through as many as possible. Understanding what you just said is what are some reasons? Why should people actually come to the Human Rights Commission? Like, is it if they feel they're being unfairly targeted by their landlord? Is it just things professionally at work? Like, what are some reasons people should come?
So someone should come to the Human Rights Commission if they believe they are experiencing discrimination or harassment, or if they want to learn more about the Human Rights Act or human rights broadly. And individuals approach us regularly to understand whether their practices and policies may be compliant with the Human Rights Act and whether they are actually upholding human rights obligations within their workplaces and the like. Important to remind the listening audience that the Human Rights Act prohibits discrimination and harassment based on grounds such as one's race, disability, sex or sexual orientation, religion or family status, in key areas of life. And this includes situations where a person may be employed or seeking employment, renting or looking to rent, or seeking to obtain goods, facilities, and services. And
mm,
so, just to give some examples, let's say there's a mom of three and she's looking to rent an apartment. However,
mm,
she's denied renting the apartment when the potential landlord advises that he doesn't rent to single parent.
mm. Interesting.
Employer, when selecting between two candidates for a job, the employer learns that one of the potential candidates has type 2 diabetes and decides that they are less suitable for the role because they incorrectly assume the person with type 2 diabetes is no longer suitable based on their disability.
Mm,
And another example could be where an employer harasses their employee due to their race when the employer engages in racist comments
mm.
characterized as jokes. Um, so these examples are very narrow with limited information, but they're used to paint a picture of how discrimination may show up in our lived experiences. And in these circumstances, one should contact the Human Rights Commission as soon as possible. And the other reason why, Jamel, is because complaints should be made. There's a statutory limit as to when a complaint should be logged, and complaints should be made within 6 months after the contravention has taken,
Mhm.
but up to 2 years, provided that the executive officer is satisfied that one, there is good reason for the delay, and two, that no one um, would be prejudiced. So it's important to
Okay.
come to the commission.
I, 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 I listened very intently just now, and having been in this situation, I feel like some things are so hard to prove, especially racism. Like that's the reason. But can you just talk about legal forms of discrimination though? Because I don't think people quite understand those. And what I mean by that, I've seen people arguing on newspaper, like under the comments and so on, where discrimination would be okay, where someone couldn't file a complaint, and the thin line in that.
So the first thing I would say is anyone who experiences, so let me just give how I think about discrimination on the most narrowest basis without even looking at the legislation. Sometimes it's that gut feeling that something just doesn't feel right. So individuals should document what they are either observing or experiencing. That's the starting point. It's always good to document. And even if you don't document, you can still come. But being able to document it's helpful to paint this picture of what is going on within the environment. Um, and so the other thing I want to say is that the human rights legislation, the Human Rights Act, provides for an independent human rights tribunal who actually makes a determination as to whether discrimination has occurred. And past decisions of the tribunal can be found on the Commission's website, humanrights.bm, including 4 judgments that were issued this year,
Mhm.
2 of which dealt with discriminatory treatment based on disability. So, and as it relates to, um, so as it relates to concerns around discrimination, whether it's racial or whether someone feels that they were discriminated against based on their race, their place of origin, their age, their disability, their marital status, their sex or sexual orientation, or any of the other protected grounds within the act. It's just important that people bring the concern to the commission because someone can assist in helping to understand whether or not it is to be handled within our jurisdiction, or if we would refer them to another agency that might be able to assist. And that's the key, is when someone feels aggrieved, when someone feels that their human rights has been infringed or believes that their human rights have been infringed. It could also be an example where the jurisdiction of the legislation does not take effect, but we're going to try and refer people to where they can get service. So, for instance, if it's employment related and the complaint does not appear to disclose that there's discriminatory elements, but it's it impacts their employment, we're going to refer them to labor. If someone feels that they have been, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Not harassed, violently. Like, for instance, there have been instances where someone has come to the commission and they've expressed that they've been violently attacked. So we're going to refer them to the police. We might refer them to, if it's a woman, we might refer them to the Women's Resource Center. So we're going to try and get individuals to where they can receive services if it's not discriminatory.
I just want to go back because I want clarity for the audience. When I was asking about legal forms of discrimination, you gave the classes, sexual orientation, race, religion. But I think, I guess in terms of proving it, is if someone came to me to apply for a job and I operated a nursery and they had a criminal record, it's important to remember criminal record is not a protected class, number one. And then number two, if it's a nursery with children and they have offenses around children, let's say in a bank and they've been caught stealing, just getting people to understand that some you can be discriminated against in that respect, but if you think it's something else, you can still file a report, right? So if you think it's race,
that's correct.
Record, right?
So let me just also say that criminal conviction, there are protections for criminal conviction. Let's give an example.
Okay.
And someone who applies, let's say someone has, previously been charged and found guilty within the courts of financial impropriety. Let's say they were a teller and they worked at the bank and they stole money.
Okay.
The act provides protection from the organization to hire that person into another role where there might be, close association with financial responsibilities. However, that doesn't mean that the person can't be, administrator or working security within that organization. So there are protections. Same thing with if there was some. Oh, I know what I was going to say. So there is also bona fide occupational protection. So, for instance, if let's say I wanted to hire someone, a caregiver for a parent, and the parent is a female, there might be in part of the desire to hire someone to be a caregiver, there might be the desire for an individual to be female as well. And so there are protections for that individual or applicants to be squared off as being female. So there are occupational justifications, but it has to be justified. So it can't simply be, I only want to hire women for this job. There has to be a documented occupational requirement.
Got it. Okay, makes sense. Let's transition because this show was it was about disability and inclusion, and one of the things that really annoyed me in working in an organization that was so focused on DEI, and it came across like optics. So everything seemed like, oh, let's focus on LGBTQ and Black, right? Race, right? And I was like, well, do we meet these standards as a destination? And it was so many different disabilities. Autism was one of them as well. So where are we with, can you share any updates on where we are with disability and inclusion consultation that was conducted earlier this year?
Sure. So we launched our survey in June. Throughout the summer, we held a number of focus groups. And then in October, we concluded the entire public consultation with a community conversation. And it featured incredible guest speakers. I'm just going to list them out. Thea Farbert, Shaiwan Harris, Esme Williams, Patrick Reed. And the full video of this event is available on our Facebook page, which is Bermuda Human Rights Commission. And as a result of the public consultation, we actually compiled all of the data, collected all of the data, compiled it, and it's currently in a draft form. We are on schedule to complete the report by the end of this year, and the intention is to present it to the government with recommendations on our observations of how to advance disability inclusion. We know by the number of complaints that we've seen over the past several years, the Commission has logged disability is one of the most frequently identified grounds of discrimination over the past 6 years. And Jamel, we know that despite the legal protections that are in place for people with disabilities, discrimination occurs frequently, and we know that policies, practices, and attitudes in Bermuda are not reflective of the standards in terms of protecting the rights of people with disabilities.
Indeed. And I think it's long overdue. I am happy to see that. Like I said, my time working in tourism, I didn't even realize it until it kept coming up. And I was meeting with different organizations and corporations outside of Bermuda about these things. So it's about finally addressing something that we should have.
Exactly. And it's really looking at who's missing. I
Mhm,
think it's commonplace. And so if we take, big business,
mhm,
there could be instances where across the boardroom table, you see people of a certain demographic.
mhm.
And it's asking the question, well, who's missing?
Great.
You know, who is missing from the decision-making process? Who
So,
is missing from contributing to making this organization or this environment
mhm,
that much stronger by the contributions by many people who simply want to participate in society
yeah.
and are skilled and able to and should.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Who's missing? Just let's if before you head out, let's walk people through the
Mhm,
process of logging a
mhm.
complaint or query with the Human Rights Commission. What does that look like?
So in essence, contact the office. Call us at 295-5859. Visit us at Human Rights Commission, Milner Place, 32 Milner Place, which is on Victoria Street.
Mhm.
Email us at intakes@humanrights.bm. Visit our website at humanrights.bm. Follow us on Facebook at Bermuda Human Rights Commission. Follow us on Instagram, BDA In order to make an intake, you simply call or email in, or you can log it on our website, and someone will assist in helping, whether it's a complaint or a query, or to learn more about human rights broadly.
Talk about accessible. My word. What do you want you know the audience to take away from conversations like these? Like what do you hope they take away when you come and you share this information? Because people face a lot of things silently.
Mhm. So true, so true. I want to emphasize and want to remind the audience that everyone has a role to play. I think sometimes we think about human rights as lofty. We think about, when we think about, say, the atrocities that are going on in various forms, various parts of the world, such as um, Palestine and
Mhm,
Myanmar and Haiti, and we think it's things that happen far away. And oftentimes we don't think about the fact that these rights belong to us here, and
mhm,
we have an obligation to uphold them here and everywhere we are. And so it's the little things that we can do to speak out
mhm.
that makes the impact. So everyone has a responsibility to ensure that people can access their full rights and freedoms in all spheres of life in Bermuda. Human rights are brought to life in both large and small ways. And so it's the impact of our collective efforts that helps create change and creates a culture where human rights are honored for everyone. And before I go, one of the ways that we can exert influence and inspire change is by joining government boards and committees.
Mhm.
So I just saw last week that there's a call now, which is open to the public, to apply to serve on government boards and committees. And so I encourage anyone who's interested in promoting human rights and disability inclusion to apply to serve on on various areas of interest. And when we think about boards and committees that need voice
Mhm.
for various areas. It's planning. We talked
Mhm.
about it this morning. You talked about it this morning about new development. Why is it that we continue to see new development that excludes
Mhm.
these basic principles of building codes?
Yeah.
So Department of Planning, we see it with education. There are, many people who don't feel that the education system reflects, you know, the needs of the students that are coming through. Transport, we know that transportation systems in Bermuda are not inclusive.
Mhm.
So I think it's important that we champion people's voices in decision-making processes.
Indeed, indeed. Absolutely. I saw that come out. People get involved. That's the best way to be a part of what we
Absolutely.
seem to be concerned about when it's time to complain. Lisa, thank you so much for this conversation. And we've had a great 2024, about 4 times you've been on. So thank you for
That's right.
keeping this information front and center with our audience. Wishing you a great holiday and a wonderful day.
Thank you, Jamel. You as well.
No problem. Talk soon. Lisa Reed, folks, if you appreciated the conversation and information, please give us a thumbs up, a love, a like. Make sure you share the information with your friends, your family, your colleagues. We're going to take our final break. We'll be back in 2 minutes, 41 seconds. I'm going to call someone's name who done the survey, and they will win a $50 gift card to Lindo's. Stick with us.
All right.